Whenever we humans go after something, how congruent we are has a huge impact on whether or not we'll get the thing we're going after. And most people, most of the time, are very, very incongruent when we go after something. We have a lot of inner conflicts. Something as simple as ordering from a menu at a restaurant creates these inner conflicts. You're hungry, you're looking at the menu, I want this, but I also want this. We're conflicted with what we want. And if you're conflicted internally when you're trying to achieve a social intention, it will give off a kind of a weird energy that makes you less attractive. Think of somebody who owns a cat or a dog and they're trying to cut their own animal's toenails. Part of them wants to cut the toenails, but part of them is worried that the cat or the dog is going to bite them when they try to do so. So they're incongruent and they can't do it. Then they take it to a professional, someone who cuts toenails for a living, and they are 100% congruent. And they grab the cat, and the cat just sits there because the cat can sense that the toenail clipper, the professional toenail clipper, is congruent in their actions. So they're completely submissive to the toenail clipper. This is what happens when you are totally congruent. Whenever you want to achieve an outcome and you have total internal congruence, people will just kind of let you do it. So how do you become congruent? How do you resolve these inner conflicts? Well, there's this fantastic procedure from NLP called integration of parts. And the purpose of this procedure is to help take these conflicted parts and get rid of the conflict and become more congruent. And before we go over the process, we need to cover a couple of ideas first. The first is to do this procedure. If you're doing it by yourself, you need to be able to put yourself into a light state of hypnosis, because you're going to have these imaginations and you're going to have conversations with these imaginations. So to put yourself in a light hypnotic trance, just kind of watch your breathing. Breathe in and breathe out. And as you breathe out, give yourself an affirmation. I am relaxed. Or I release stress. Or I release worry. And just do this 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 times and kind of get yourself in a nice, comfortable, self-hypnotic state. You can do this whenever you want to. You can practice this except when you're driving. But this is a great tool that you can use during any other procedures or any other time during the day when you want to relax. Is just use your breathing to relax. Just, I am relax. And if you want to, you can imagine breathing out all the stress and all the junk and all the emotional baggage that you don't want anymore, you don't need anymore. The next thing we need to cover is the idea of higher order criteria or higher levels of criteria. Now, what is higher level of criteria? Well, the criteria is how you describe what you want. If you want something to eat, that's your desire. The criteria describes that desire. And so you want something warm. You want something served to you in a restaurant. You want something familiar, so you don't have to taste anything new. These are all the criteria. And when we talk about criteria, there's low-level criteria or the tangible criteria, and then there's the higher-level criteria or the intangible criteria. For example, let's say somebody wants to buy a car. So they go to a car dealership, and the car salesperson says, what kind of car do you want? Well, I like an SUV, dark blue, metallic, brand new, no miles. Okay, that's the tangible criteria, the stuff that you can measure. And to get to the higher order criteria or to get higher criteria, you ask what's important about the lower level criteria. So the car salesperson says, so you have an SUV that's blue, metallic blue, no miles, brand new. What's important about that? And they say, well, the color's important because I like the color blue. I like to be able to express myself the way I want to express myself. So that's the way I express myself. I like to express myself. That's a clue of a higher order criteria. What about the SUV? What's important about that? Well, when I think about an SUV, I like it because I like the idea because I can kind of throw my junk in the back when I need to and get out of town in a hurry. I like to travel. Okay, cool. You like to get out of town. You like to travel. What's important about that? Well, when I travel, I feel a sense of freedom because I can leave at any moment. If I had a smaller car, I would feel more constrained and I wouldn't feel as much as a sense of freedom as I do if I had an SUV. Okay, so a sense of freedom is what you're really after. So ultimately, you'd like an SUV so you can throw your junk in the back, travel away on weekends, and feel that sense of freedom. Yeah, that's what I'm after. So that sense of freedom is kind of their highest order level of criteria when talking about the car that they want to buy. So this is a very powerful process when talking to people, your friends, about what they want, or if you're selling things. But for the integration of parts technique, it's very, very powerful. So how do we do the integration of parts? Now, the theory is that we have all these different parts that make up our mind-body system. And all of these parts are trying to help us get what we want. But a lot of them have different ways of doing that. Like one part of you wants to eat this one thing on the menu, and another part of you wants to eat this other thing on the menu. And your parts are conflicted. Both of your parts want to get you fed, but they have different ways of doing that. And so ultimately, these two different parts in this example of going to a restaurant, they have conflicted lower level criteria, but they have similar higher level criteria. So the process is to get yourself in a nice, relaxed, meditative, hypnotic state, and think of something that you want that brings up the idea of conflict. Like, let's say you imagine talking to pretty girls at the club, and part of you wants to be outgoing, extroverted, flamboyant, life of the party kind of guy. But another part of you wants to kind of be withdrawn, held back, safe, protected. And so you ask these two parts to come out, and you act as if these two parts are individual sentient beings that have their own intention and their own desires. And you ask them to come out, and you ask if they'd like to have a conversation. And make sure they say yes. And then when you're in that kind of hypnotic state, talk to them and ask this part over here, the part that wants to be flamboyant and outgoing. So what's important to you about being outgoing? And imagine them giving you an answer. Imagine they're a separate person from you, and you're really honestly talking to yourself, but you imagine it's a separate part because you're trying to discern all these different parts of you. And so ask them what's important about being outgoing. And they say, well, or you imagine them saying, well, if I'm outgoing, a lot of people will notice us. Okay, cool, you want a lot of people to notice us. What's important about that? Well, if a lot of people notice us, some of them might like us and we might like them. Okay, cool. So you want to be outgoing because you want to get potential people that like us and we like them. Yeah, that's what I want. Okay, cool. What's important about that? Well, if some people like us and we like them, we might be able to create a relationship. Okay, so ultimately, you're looking to maybe create a relationship. Yeah, that's right. So what's important about that? Well, if we create a relationship, we can experience emotional and sexual intimacy. We can share life with somebody. Okay, cool. So you want to share life with somebody. And that's their highest order criteria. This imaginary part that you're having a conversation with, this is their higher order criteria, to share life with someone. And then ask them, so when you share life with someone, when you have that relationship, what does that look like? And imagine how they describe that. Imagine how they describe all the colors and all the feelings and all the sounds and all the sensations and what they do on a daily basis, and get a very, very rich, very detailed description of that outcome, what they're ultimately after, their highest level criteria, to share life with somebody. And once you get that, ask them if they'll kind of hang out for a little bit while you talk to this part over here. And then go through the same process. So when you want to feel safe and kind of guarded, what's important about that? Well, if we're safe and guarded, we might not make any mistakes. We might not get rejected by somebody. Okay, so you don't want to get rejected. That's what you're going after. That's why you want to be safe. Yeah, I don't want to be rejected. Okay, what's important about not being rejected? And then imagine having a conversation with this part. Well, if we're not rejected, that will increase our chances of meeting somebody. Okay, cool. So you want to meet somebody. Yeah, I'd like to meet somebody. Well, what's important about meeting somebody? Well, if we meet somebody, we might develop a relationship. We might enjoy a relationship with somebody. Okay, cool. So ultimately, what you want is to enjoy a relationship with somebody. Yeah, that's what I want. And what's important about that? Well, if we enjoy a relationship with somebody, we can enjoy emotional and sexual intimacy, and we can share life with somebody. Okay, so ultimately, you want to share life with somebody. Yeah, that's what I'm after. And so what you're doing is you're starting off with the lower level criteria of both these parts that are complete opposition. But as you go up the chain, the hierarchy of higher level criteria, you're finding out that they both want the same thing. They both want to share life with somebody. And so kind of pretend you're having a three-way conversation and say, well, part, look at this part over here. Notice that you both want the same thing. Notice that on the lower level, you're maybe going in opposite directions, but on the higher level, you're really after the same thing. And then ask them if they would consider working together to kind of join forces to help you get what they both want. A relationship with somebody so you can share life with somebody. And this is the part where you can just relax and imagine this happening. Maybe close your eyes and allow your hands to kind of drift together on their own while the two parts do all the work of merging together to create a kind of a super part. And once they create this super part, just take a few deep breaths and acknowledge this new part, and then kind of welcome this new part into your mind-body system. And just kind of relax and experience this process. Experience this new part being welcomed into your mind-body system, and you'll be a little bit more congruent. Now, there's no right or wrong way to do this. The most important part is you are very, very creative, and you just kind of do whatever you think works. And then imagine this part coming together. Imagine welcoming the part into your mind-body system, and imagine that you now have a new super part that's going to help you get what you want. And if you do this process on a daily basis, you'll slowly become more congruent. And one of the most attractive things you can do is become congruent when you're out having social interactions with people. When you're socially congruent, you'll be like the metaphorical toenail clipper, the cat toenail clipper that gets the cats to just sit there and be obedient while they clip their toenails. You'll be so congruent with your language. You'll be so congruent with your nonverbal behavior, your nonverbal communication, that people will find you incredibly attractive. And the more congruent you are, the more congruently you'll be able to go after all your goals. And a lot of people have these goals, but they can't get started because of these internal conflicts. So when you resolve these internal conflicts, it'll help you go after your goals more aggressively, more confidently, more courageously, more congruently. And the more congruent you become, it'll help you in all areas of your life. This is kind of a weird procedure. You'll have to kind of trust the process. Give it some time. Imagine talking to people. Imagine having conversations. Imagine bringing the parts together. Imagine creating a new part. And just and look for evidence. Once you do this process and you welcome the new part into your mind-body system, actually look for evidence that this part is now operating and helping you achieve what you want in life. So give this a try. Let me know what you think. Give me any questions in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you'd like to learn more about how to use hypnosis to improve yourself, check out the links below. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.